Hare Krishna Krishna Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Ram Ram Hare Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram.
Namro Prabhu, I'll call Prabhu and find out if he joins. Please introduce. Or Madhupaz Prabhu, if you're there, let me call him another line.
Krishna Ram Hare Hare Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Ram Hare Krishna Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Krishna Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna Hare Ram Hare Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Ram Hare Hare Krishna Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Ram Hare 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 Krishna Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Ram Hare Hare
Dandavad, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hello.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hello. Hare Krishna. Dandavad, Jai Shri
No,
Prabhupada. Sorry, I somehow or other I couldn't open this link. It was misdirecting me, but I'm here. Okay.
Are you able to keep yourself on video or?
No, I don't have that.
Okay. Okay. So we're very fortunate to have you, Prabhuji. Please, you can begin your class on this wonderful topic, which the Bhagavatam class, which Krishnanand Prabhu gave you the verse number.
I have it.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji. Please begin.
Okay, so then we'll begin, of course, with Mangalacharana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudirayet. Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishne Swadhamopagate. Dharmajnanadibhis saha. Alau Nashtratrashamesha. Puranarko Dhunoditaha. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yutaparakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganagunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaganalalata Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madgavirapi Gopala Svikurjat Kripaya Yadi Tadaivasan Payah Pitva Hrishyayustat Priyajanaha. Today we're speaking on the Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 11, text number 22. This is the continuing narration of the transcendental qualities of Vritrasura. And we have here Vritrasura is speaking to Indra while they're in battle. And he's exhibiting his transcendental Krishna consciousness, even in the midst of a raging battle against the king of heaven. Quite a scene. So, as I said, we're on text number 22. I will just recite the Sanskrit of that text, and then we'll hear the translation and the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, founder and Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Pumsam kilaikanta dhyam swakanam yah sampado divi bhumau rasayam narati yad dvesha udvega adhir madaha kalir vyasanam samprayasaham. That means persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of His lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as His own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text 11, the Lord says, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tanstateva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushyaha partha sarvashah. As devotees surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects, O son of Pratap. Both Indra and Vritrasura were certainly devotees of the Lord, although Indra took instructions from Vishnu to kill Vritrasura. The Lord was actually more favorable to Vritrasura because after being killed by Indra's thunderbolt, Vritrasura would go back to Godhead, whereas the victorious Indra would rot in this material world. Because both of them were devotees, the Lord awarded them the respective benedictions they wanted. Vritrasura never wanted material possessions, for he knew very well that the nature of such possessions. To accumulate material possessions one must labor very hard, and when he gets them, he creates many enemies because of this material world is always full of rivalry. If one becomes rich, his friends or relatives are envious. For Ekanta Bhaktas, unalloyed devotees, Krishna therefore never provides material possessions. A devotee sometimes needs some material possessions for preaching, but the possessions of a preacher are not like those of a karmi. A karmi's possessions are achieved as a result of karma, but those of a devotee are arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead just to facilitate his devotional activities. Because a devotee never uses material possessions for any purpose other than the service of the Lord, the possessions of a devotee are not to be compared to those of a karmi. Pungsam kiraikanta dhiyam swakanam ya sampato divi bhumau rasayam narati yad dvesha udvega adhir madak kalir vyasanam samprayasaha. Persons who fully surrender at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and always think of his lotus feet are accepted and recognized by the Lord as his own personal assistants or servants. The Lord never bestows upon such servants the brilliant opulences of the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems of this material world. When one possesses material opulence in any of these three divisions of the universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, mental agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus, one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. In this passage of the Srimad Bhagavatam, very long story, the whole sojourn of the history here goes back a long time. Of course, it began, we know, with Indra offended his spiritual master, and as a result, his whole class, all the demigods in heaven were defeated by the demons, and they had to elect another priest to help them to fight the demons. Indra somehow or other ended up killing the Brahmana, and he was cursed, and he distributed his curse, and it's a long story. Anyway, so now we have Vritrasura, a so-called demon, but actually he's more advanced in spiritual life than even Indra himself. The king of the demigods is outclassed in terms of Krishna consciousness by this so-called demon, because Chitraketu was previously cursed by Mother Parvati to become a demon. Otherwise, he's actually one of them. He's demigod. And he's certainly a devotee. But what kind of devotee? There are different kinds of devotees. There are chiefly two classes. We can talk about two classes of devotees. The Nishkama Bhaktas, those are the pure devotees. And the Sakama Bhaktas, those are the mixed devotees. The pure devotees don't want anything, either in the realm of personal aggrandizement or in the realm of relief through escape. Those are called karma and gyan, or bhoga and tyaga, respectively. And the devotees are not interested in either one of them. Devotees only want to serve Krishna. Now, when we try to apply these principles in our own lives, we recognize just how exalted the devotees really are, because it's not so easy. When we're conditioned souls, Srila Prabhupada himself said in one assembly of devotees, he said, more or less, we're all demons. And we feel it when we are tested by the Lord. And this certainly must be a great test for Indra at this moment. He's fighting with this huge demon. All of his army is afraid of the demon. They're all running away from him. And this demon is not in the least threatened by any of them. He seems to be fearless, and he doesn't even mind dying. What do you do with an opponent like that? So it was a test for Indra. It was also a test for Vritrasura. Nobody knows the end of the Leela. Every one of us has to undergo some sort of Leela in relation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we don't know the course that our lives will take, although we can say from experience and from hearing that our lives will turn out differently than we thought they would. Invariably, that seems to happen. A favorite example of mine, at least, is Krishna's great devotee, his father, Vasudeva Maharaj. Vasudeva knew only that he had to carry his child across the river to Gokula. He was instructed by Lord Vishnu in the prison of Kamsa. Those of you who have been to Mathura, you know the prison of Kamsa. You've probably been there. And Vasudeva was shackled with his wife Devaki in that prison. And when the Lord was born, somehow or other, they had darshan of this wonderful Vishnu Murti, and the Lord instructed them, take me to Gokula, exchange me with the daughter rather of your best friend in Gokula, Nanda Maharaj. So somehow or other he had to do that. How would he do that? He had no idea. We know from the Bhagavatam that somehow all the guards fell asleep, the shackles were undone, the doors opened, the Yamuna parted, he crossed the river, he snuck into Nanda's courtyard. He went into the room of his wife, his best friend's wife. He kidnapped their baby. All these things. On the order of Vishnu, he had to do these things. But my point is simply this. We don't know what the plan of the Lord is. Bhishma Dev tells us this way back in the first canto. And nobody can know the plan of the Lord. Even though great philosophers and munis and yogis inquire exhaustively, still they're bewildered. So what that means is that sometimes we have to face all sorts of reverses. Sometimes we have to face difficulties. Sometimes we have to fight battles, even we don't want to. And sometimes we have to be killed. Now look at the reaction of Vritrasura to his own impending death. He seems to intuit that he's going to die. From his various statements, we can infer that. But he doesn't really know. And Indra also doesn't know the outcome yet. No, none of them have read the Bhagavatam yet. The script is unknown to them. But by playing their own part in the Lord's Leela, which means by following the instructions of the Lord, which means by following the instructions of the spiritual master, the instructions of the sadhus, the Guru Parampara, and the instructions of the Shastra, then we know that we will play our part. If we are doing what we are meant to do, we will be empowered to do that very thing. So this is the circumstance. Great challenge. Very ironic. So-called demon fighting the so-called demigod, but actually that so-called demigod is actually more materially attached than the so-called demon is. So it's quite curious. There are many, 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 many lessons that we can learn from this long story in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So many, but we'll take a look. We'll try to dilate on some of the ideas that are mentioned here only in this verse. First of all, Pumsam kila ekantadhyam swakanam yasampado divi bhumaurasayam narati. The Lord does not give his unalloyed devotees the opulences of the hellish planets. He doesn't give them the opulences of this world, and he doesn't give them the opulences of heaven either. When he considers them to be his own. Swakanam. So the word is used here, ekanta dhyam, among those who are ekanta dhi. Different acharyas have commented in various ways on this verse to explain what this very important word means. Let's just take a look at this. First of all, Sridhar Swami, actually Sridhar Swami doesn't mention it, but he does have some very important comments to make about this. He says, Tarhi Bhagavan Sankarshana Swabhrityaya Mahyam Eva Swargadi Sampado Dasyatiti Apiva Samshayishta Ityaha Pungsamiti. That means that this verse is spoken with the intent to illustrate, Indra, you should never doubt that Bhagavan Sankarshan would maybe give just opulence such as that found in Swarga to me, his own servant, his devotee. Never doubt means you should not think that he's going to give such things to me because I'm fully surrendered unto him. This is the implication. He doesn't come out and say it directly, but he does say that you should not have any doubts about this. And then he goes on, Swarge bhumau rasatalecha ya sampadas ta kila nishchitam narati nadadati. Narati, the word here is used rati in the third line of the verse. It really just means that he glosses it as dadati. He doesn't give it. And whatever opulence is there to be found, whether it's in Svarga or in this world or in Rasatala, the lower hellish planets, he's not going to give that to his unalloyed devotee. And then the second half of the verse, he explains why. Yet here, Sridhar Swami says, Yad yabhyo dveshadayo bhavanti, tatra hetuhu. The reason is that when we have these opulences, any kind of opulence, what does it give rise to? 7 anarthas. 7 of them, count them, beginning in line 2. Dvesha, udvega, adhihi, mada, kadihi, vyasanam, and samprayasa. Srila Prabhupada translates those as envy, anxiety, adhi, mental agitation, pride, quarrel, distress due to loss, and great endeavor. So why would Krishna want to bestow upon his unalloyed servants such headaches? He doesn't. So to whom does Krishna give these things? Sometimes we see. If we've read 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita and studied the various acharyas' commentaries on that chapter, then we understand there are different classes of devotees. As I mentioned earlier, Sakama devotees and Nishkama devotees. Those who are Sakama devotees, devotees who are harboring material aspirations of any sort within their hearts, those devotees, they very often end up in the heavenly planets. So is it a contradiction? Here it says the whole point of the verse is to illustrate, Vritrasura wants to make sure that Indra has no doubt that Krishna will not give these things to his unalloyed devotees. So therefore the conclusion is he gives them to the mixed devotees. He gives them to the mixed devotees. So be careful what you desire within your heart, because you may end up getting it and getting only that. This is the point. So we'll dilate on that in a moment. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his comment on this verse, he adds a little bit. He always adds a little bit. If we go through history and study the commentaries of our predecessor acharyas, we see that as time passes, the commentaries tend to get longer and longer, as if in previous ages, people were so smart that you didn't really need to say much to illustrate exactly what the verse meant. Now we're pretty dumb. And so now we need everything explained to us. And the longest purports that exist from any of our acharyas are those of Srila Prabhupada in English, because that's about as much as we can handle. Anyway, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborates a little bit here. He says, Tarhi tvad bhakti toshita sankarshana stubhyam eva swargadya ishwaryam tasyatiti mavadihi. He tells Indra, don't say that satisfied with your devotion, Sankarshan is going to give you the wealth and enjoyment of Svarga. Shrino he Shakra. Listen, Indra. Mat prabhostvam cha bhakto ham cha bhaktas tatra tubhyam eva bhogaishwaryam dadati natu mahyam ityatra karanam mat prabhoho swabhavam eva shrino ityaha pungsamiti. This verse, pungsam, it's meant to illustrate something. You and I are both devotees of the same Lord. He's talking to Indra. Vritrasura tells Indra, you and I are both devotees of the same Lord. You will notice, if you've been listening carefully, that what Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to this verse is more or less paraphrase of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on the same verse. So listen, Indra, you and I are both devotees of the same Lord. He'll give you enjoyment and wealth, but he will not give me enjoyment and wealth. Tatra hetu, here is the reason. Listen to the nature of my Lord. Ya sampadastha ekantadibhyaha pumpyo narati nadadati. He does not give that wealth to persons who are dedicated completely to him. Kutaha? Why? Yad yataha sampadbhyo dveshadayo bhakti sukhe vikshepaka bhavanti ityata ataha. Because from wealth come hatred and other bad qualities which weakened the joy of bhakti. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is the first one that I've seen who specifically comments on this idea, mentions it at least, ekantadibhya, ekantadi, the person whose intelligence is focused. That's what it means, ekantadi. His intelligence has no other end in mind, no other goal than me alone. In other words, he's an exclusive devotee. This is the point. Viraraghava Acharya, he's a Vaishnava Bhagavatam commentator from the Sri Sampradaya, Ramanuja Sampradaya. He glosses this term, ekantadhyam. In his commentary, it means prayojananantarahita matinam, those whose intelligence is devoid of any other kind of goal. Prayojana means goal. Prayojana antararahita matinam, those whose minds or intelligence, they can't imagine any other focus in life other than devotion itself. And in case that is unclear, he glosses it yet again. He says, ananya prayojananam ityarthaha. The idea is that they are ananya devotees. Their goal is one and only one, none other than one. So this is his idea. Now, another commentator from the Vallabh Vaishnava Sampradaya, he says, Nanu katham bhutan sakyata granhati yanevam sarva dukha sagarat rakshasi tyashankayam aha ekantadhyamiti. In case somebody wonders what kind of person Krishna accepts as his own and protects from the ocean of material sufferings, he says ekantadhyam. This word is very important. We're talking about the pure devotee, the nishkama bhakta, not the sakama bhakta, the exclusively surrendered devotees. How is that? What is the meaning of that? Ekantadhyam means one whose own intelligence is completely settled on Krishna alone, having given up through discrimination all prospects of sense gratification. Vivekataya dukkha karana sarva vishaya bhogabhilasham tyaktva swaika paryavasita buddhinam ityarthaha. So if someone has the doubt now that what's wrong with having all sorts of material opulences along with one's spiritual life, then the second half of the verse, he explains, gives us the reason why that's a problem. 7 results, and he glosses each one of them. Dvesha, what does dvesha mean? Dvesha means, in his words, anyonya vairam, to be mutually envious. We may remember in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a section that describes how the different residents of Jambudvip are worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And those who are following Prahlad Maharaj in worship of Lord Narasimhadev, they chant a very beautiful prayer that you will find written over the doorway of the Krishna Janmasthan in Mathura. Swastiyastu vishvasya khala prasidatam jhayantu bhutani shivam mithodhya manascha bhadram paratarathokshaje aveshyatam no matirapyahaitaki. That means, may there be auspiciousness for the entire universe, and may all the rascals be pacified. Swasti astu vishvasya khala prasidatam jayantu bhutani shivam mithodhya. And may people think of each other's welfare. Jayantu bhutani shivam mithodhya. May they only desire good for each other. This is exactly the opposite of the actual situation that we usually find in this world, which is, in the words of this Acharya, anyonya vairam. Everyone is mutually envious. But just to finish the point, how do we actually get there? To that point, if we're mutually envious of each other, but we want to actually think of each other's welfare, what do? Jayantu bhutani shivam mithodhya manascha bhadram. Our minds have to become, first of all, auspicious, just like they used to have 100 years ago in Bengal. Bhadraloka, people who are supposedly auspicious. Actually, to become bhadram means to become non-envious. Manascha bhadram, and how do you do that? Bhajatad adhokshaje, by worshiping the supreme transcendental personality of Godhead, who is inconceivable to all mundane gyan. Manascha bhadram bhajatad adhokshaje aveshyatam no matir api ahaitaki. Prahlad Maharaj says, we pray that our intelligence, even our intelligence. Why does he say even? Because Prahlad is conscious of the fact that, technically speaking, he's born in a demoniac family. Just like Vritrasura, technically, he's also considered to be a demon. And yet we see sometimes these demons even outshine the best of the demigods in their devotion to Lord Vishnu. It's very ironic. It's surprising. And yet it's not that uncommon. Throughout the Shastras, we find so many places that the most unlikely, so-called unlikely recipients of the Lord's mercy, they become the greatest devotees. This is how the Lord acts in this world. This is the lesson that he wants to teach all of us, that it doesn't matter how much learning you have. Certainly doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter how much respect you have, how much support, what your position, your prestige, your social, your career, whatever it is. These things do not really matter when it comes to pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anyone who has a pure-hearted intention to satisfy the Lord can actually do so by practicing this process of bhakti. So, dvesha, this world is characterized by two things, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Ichcha, desires to evade the Lord's authority while exploiting the Lord's property. Again, that returns us to the realms of karma and gyan. And dvesha, envy of other people who are succeeding at that effort more than we are. So dvesha here means anyonya vairam, to have animosity towards each other in this world. It is the opposite of the character of a pure devotee. And Krishna is therefore very hesitant. When he sees that one is actually serious about Krishna consciousness, he will be very hesitant to bestow upon a pure devotee these kinds of material opulences because they can threaten one. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. By your association, your desires will develop. So many desires. Whatever you associate with, that's what you're going to desire. So, when our heads are full of this dvesha, then what comes next? Udvega. Udvega. Srila Prabhupada has translated it here as anxiety, or Goswami Giridharilal has translated it as manas chanchalyam, agitation of the mind, flickering of the mind. This is the mind's nature. It's very fortunate in some respects to live in Vrindavan and to see monkeys every day. Because when you see monkeys every day and you observe the behavior and the psychology and the general character of the monkey, then it gives you deep insights into the nature of the mind itself, the material mind, because the material mind is just like a monkey. A monkey is very intelligent, very clever is maybe a better word, And the monkey is very active and he's also very destructive all at the same time. Once when I was living at Govardhan Hill, because in the dead of winter, from about mid-December to mid-January, it becomes so overwhelmingly cold that we have to flee to South India for at least a month or so in the really cold part of the winter. So we came back from South India one year, and we found that in the building that we were renting, not only were each and every electrical wire in the building disconnected, but they were all spliced completely because the monkeys enjoy themselves with such activities. One night, or I should say early one morning, when we woke up to take a shower, we found that there was no water. Why was there water? No water in the tap? We found out when we came downstairs because the entire courtyard was full of the water that had come out of the tank. How did the water get out of the tank? The monkeys came in the courtyard, they turned on the spigot, they drank whatever they want, and they ran off to play, leaving the rest of the tank to drain. This is what monkeys do. And this is what our minds do also. Manas chanchalyam. This is the idea. The mind is like an irresponsible rascal monkey, up to no good. And so the acharyas have instructed us, what do you do with your mind? How do you deal with the mind? How shall you chasten the mind? You simply have to beat the mind. There is no question of, sama, dana, four kinds of niti that they do with people. And enemies, how do you treat enemies? You can flatter an enemy, you can try to conciliate him somehow, you can bribe him with gifts, but when all else fails, you simply have to fight. So monkeys, there's no question of anything. You immediately begin with danda, just fight. And what is the danda that we beat the monkey of our mind with? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Morning and evening. Just beat it and the monkey will flee. If there's one thing that a monkey understands, it's a heavy stick. That much they know. They may not seem to mind anything else, but they know that. And similarly, the mundane mind with a monkey, this is how it responds. Udvega, always agitated like a monkey. But if you chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, hote, everything will become very peaceful. So that's the second thing that comes from too much opulence. The mind becomes agitated, worrying about where's my money, who's going to take my money, where's the safest place to invest it, how do I protect from hackers, what about my identity theft, and so many things. Adhi is, Prabhupada translates it here as mental agitation or anxiety. Here it's been also glossed as manasa santapa, the burning of the mind. Worries about sense gratification, about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. These things are constantly going over in our minds. These are the things that make our minds agitated. The worries about the burning things within our minds. It's like burning a hole in our brain. Or as they say in Mumbai, what is that? Meri dimag ko dahi banana. Don't turn my brain into yogurt. So the mind's always burning, but when we put the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda within our mind or within our heart, they're the same thing, then everything is cooling and soothing, pacified. What are those lotus feet of Lord Nityananda? The instructions of the spiritual master. And of all the instructions of the spiritual master, the number one instruction is to chant every single day, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Do not let anyone tell you that anything is more important than that. Because Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Aiva Kevalam. Kalau nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyatha. There is nothing as powerful in this age as the holy name. 3 times it's repeated, just for the benefit of those of us who are slow. We need it repeated thrice. Okay, so that's Adhi. dvesha, udvega, adi, mada. What does mada mean? Prabhupada says pride, or in Sanskrit, gardava. Gardava. We're so proud. We don't want to take instruction from anybody. What to speak of from a demon, such as Vritrasura. Indra was proud. That was what caused all this whole great long saga of the sixth canto, because he was so proud at listening to his own glories that he could not stand up to respect his spiritual master, if in fact he even noticed his spiritual master. This is another thing. We become so self-absorbed. That is also another kind of gardava. We don't even know who's who and what's going on around us. Therefore, it's not surprising that we get kalihi. Kalihi. Kalihi means fighting, quarrel. Kalaha. This is the age of kalaha. Over a trifling, people are ready to quarrel in this age. Any small thing, any misunderstanding, any little thing that causes a quarrel, and it goes on for months, sometimes years even. People will not talk to one another, or they try to outdo each other, or they somehow have some kalaha going on. This is the idea. So these things are all affected when we have material opulence. If we have nothing, then we're happy because we have nothing to lose. This was the teaching of Gautama Buddha. All suffering is caused from so much attachment. So attachment. Vyasana means tannashe hraseva dukham. When we are attached to something, then we have to suffer when that thing either diminishes, that's called hrasa, or when it is destroyed or taken away, that's called nasha, destruction. So, or as Prabhupada says here, distress due to loss. Due to loss or due to diminishing, either one, Goswami Giritari Lal says. Tannashe hraseva dukham, vyasanam. This also results when you have something, then you have so much to worry about immediately. If you have nothing, then you're fine. There are so many stories. Sometimes we see these people, they may get some, out of the blue, they get some prize, or they enter some lottery ticket on a whim, and they end up getting $1 million. And immediately it just galvanizes everyone they know around them. Suddenly all the friends are coming out of the woodwork. And if they don't somehow or other share this wealth with their friends, then they have so many enemies. As Prabhupada has written in his purport, as soon as, when he gets material possessions, then he creates many enemies, because this material world is always full of rivalry. Sometimes we see this. If Mr. Patel next door has a car that I want, and then I've got to get the same car. Otherwise, he's going to outclass me, and that's intolerable. So this is a problem. Vyasanam means we lose it. I had a car, but then it was smashed, or someone stole it, or I just can't tolerate the envy of my neighbors anymore. Sometimes we see this also. Somebody has really, really nice car, and people get so envious that they just drive by it on a motorcycle with a key, and they just destroy the paint job just to be envious. So tannashe hraseva dukham, vyasanam. This is called vyasanam. And then finally, samprayasaha, samvardhana samrakshanadi prayatnena shramaha. You cannot have anything in this material world unless you work hard for it. Hitopadesh, we find this famous verse, Nahi suptasya singhasya pravishanti mukhe mragaha. Even if a lion considers himself the king of the forest, we also consider the lion to be the king of the forest. But just because he's the king of the forest doesn't mean that he doesn't have to do something. He also has to get up and hunt. It's not that he can just lie in the path with his mouth open and all the deer are going to just march into his mouth voluntarily. It doesn't work like that. Samprayasaha, you have to endeavor. That is in fact why this world is called Pavarga. Pavarga. Most Indian languages have the Pavarga. In Tamil, we don't have it. But in most languages, you have Pavarga. What is Pavarga? It means Pa, Pa, Ba, Bha, Ma. And each of these aksharas has some significance. Pa stands for Parishram. This is the point here. Samvardhana samrakshanadi prayatnena shrama. The hard endeavor which is meant to either protect what you have or gain what you don't have. Hard endeavor, parishrama. So what happens when you're parishrama, working very, very hard? How hard are you working? 40-hour work week, that disappeared 20 or 30 years ago. People have to work so much more than that. I don't know how it goes now that people are working from home. But the point is that you have to work hard because deer are not going to walk into the mouth of a sleeping lion. So shrama, parishrama, you have to work so hard. It's described that what do you get? Pa. Pa means pena. Pena means you're foaming at the mouth. In the old days, now everybody takes taxi, but in the old days, when we used to go to Mathura, you would get out at Mathura Junction train station, and you had to take a tanga from Mathura to Vrindavan. In those days, they were separate cities, not even cities, they were villages, towns. So from Mathura to Vrindavan, you would go along a dirt road. Mathura road in those days was just a dirt path. And every so often there were little troughs in which the horses could stop to drink water. Why? Because the horses' mouths would be foaming. In the hot sun, if you're a horse and you're running because you're foolish to carry some human being who is more intelligent than you, then you get hot, you get sweaty, and you're foaming at the mouth, you dehydrate. Not so difficult thing to do. So the horses used to get so dehydrated that they would foam at the mouth and they had to have water. That's called pena. Parishram is so hard in this world just to maintain and protect what you have. To get what you want and maintain what you've got, you have to foam at the mouth with hard work. And what happens? What is the nature of that work? Ba, ba. That is the third letter of the Pavarga. What does ba stand for? Bantha, banthanam. Your work is not just work to get the fruit of the work. It's work that gets the fruit not only in the form of the instant gratification, but there's a long-term reaction for it. Therefore, the Govindadas Kaviraj, the great Maithili poet, he says, what is that? Day and night, I'm working hard to serve miserly people. This is our position. And what do I get as my wages? You get karmic bandhana. You get bondage to the wheel of samsara. You have to come back again to realize the results of your fruitive work. You think that you're working for your paycheck. Actually, you're working for your next birth. This is the hard, cold reality of material existence. And therefore he says that why am I serving such wicked and miserly men? Only for a little momentary sense gratification. That's his realization. Only just for some slight happiness. And as Vidyapati elsewhere said, another Maithili poet, he also wrote, what is the nature of that sense gratification we're working so hard that we're foaming at the mouth and accepting karmic bondage over? It's like a drop of water in the desert. Like a drop of water, it's not enough. But in addition to pa, parishram, pa, pena, ba, banthanam, we also have to deal with bhaya. Bhaya means fear. What are we afraid of? Well, we're afraid, for one thing, of anyonya vairis, those who are envious of each other, those who are envious of us. As Prabhupada said, let's say that you've worked hard enough, you've gained something, you've actually got something that's enviable. In some sense, it's very flattering to your sense of ego, but at the same time, you're well aware that people are envious. People maybe want to steal what you have. Maybe the government wants to steal what you have. Certainly China wants to steal what you have, but somebody's going to steal it because this is a world of anyonya vairam. So bha means bhaya. We're afraid. We don't know what the next challenge is going to be. And maybe the next challenge is death, because that comes next. If you can tolerate the hard work, the foam at the mouth, the karmic bondage, and the fear that accompanies you at every step in your journey apart, trying to escape from the Lord while exploiting his things, then you have as your constant companion fear. And at the very end, you know for sure that it's always going to end in one thing, and that is maranam, mrityu, death. So this is called pavarga, pa-pa-ba-bhama. And the path of devotional service is called apavarga, apavarga. It is not at all the same as material endeavor, although it looks that way. Externally, the devotees seem to be doing the same things that the karnamis, or the more likely vikarnamis, are doing, but the devotees are in a completely transcendental category, therefore they're called apavarga. And Lord Kapila Dev has taught his mother in 3rd canto, chapter 25, text 25, another very famous verse, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha tad joshanad ashwapavarga varshmani apavarga varshmani shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishiti. The devotees, because they are associating with saintly persons, and because in that saintly association they're becoming enlivened by hearing the topics of the Lord and by chanting his holy names and trying to render humble, sincere service at the Lord's lotus feet. That generates an enthusiasm, tad joshanat ashu apavarga vartmi, which very quickly places us on the path beyond pavarga. Apavarga varsmana. Apavarga varta means the path beyond this material existence. And how do we traverse that path? We begin in the very first step is Shraddha. We have some initial faith, very, very important. Everybody has 100% faith. It's not that some people have more faith and other people have less faith. Everybody has 100% faith. It's only a question of where you're investing that faith. That is our choice, where we choose to invest our faith. It is our choice. Of course, our choice is very, very much conditioned by our association. As we said before, sangat sanjayate kama. But ultimately, we are the ones man is the architect of his own future, it is said. So if we invest our faith in the association, adau shraddha tata sadhu sangat bhajana kriya, and we are thereby engaged in devotional service, beginning with hearing things like this. And then we undergo the process of anartha nivritti. Here in tonight's verse, we are discussing 7 anarthas. Dvesha, udvega, adhi, madah, kari, vyasanam, samprayasa. That is to say, mutual envy, agitation of the mind, the burning of anxiety, pride, quarrel, suffering over the loss or diminution of our assets, and anxiety and hard work over endeavoring to either protect or to gain our assets. Well, these are all anarthas. And those anxieties and those miseries and those entanglements, they are dissolved in the good association of devotees when we engage in the process of hearing and chanting, specifically hearing the holy name of Krishna and chanting the holy name of Krishna. Then we get fixed in that process. It becomes easier the more strictly we follow it. It's counterintuitive. We tend to think that the more strictly I follow something, the more difficult it will be. But in fact, the more strictly we follow this process, the easier it gets. And that's called nishtha. We become fixed because the anarthas are diminishing. The more strictly we follow, the faster the anarthas diminish. And when the anarthas are completely diminished, or almost completely diminished, then we get a real taste. Nishtha, we get ruchi, we get a real taste. That's been described. Shraddharatir bhaktir nukramishiti. Different acharyas have commented on this. Some say that rati means ruchi, and others say that rati means other things. But the point is that for sure we will come to the stage of really being able to taste the Srimad Bhagavatam, really being able to taste the holy name when we strictly follow in good association, because without good association, nothing happens. It is all based on association of sadhus with faith and submission. Then we gradually begin to awaken our dormant Krishna consciousness, and we get a clue of to what love really is. That's called bhava. We become attached to the process, and then we begin to awaken some love, and then it matures in prema. This has been described at length in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and Bhagavatam chapter 25, text 25 of the third canto just kind of gives us some kshipta version, a summary version. Shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishiti. By going through these stages one by one, we can achieve the ultimate perfection of life. And that is freedom from all these miseries. So Krishna, the point is, what is Vritrasura telling Indra here? The point is that why Krishna does not give his devotees material comforts or opulences, as well as devotional service, because it's very, very hard to do that if one is a Sakama devotee. And that, which is to say, until one becomes actually a pure devotee, it is very dangerous to associate with material opulence. And therefore, Krishna is very hesitant to provide them. If someone is a nonsense, I mean to say not nonsense, but if someone is mixed devotee, he's not really that sincere about devotee, then to get rid of him, Krishna will give him whatever he wants. He'll send him to Svarga Loka, where he can enjoy all the things that he actually wants instead of chanting. And that's not really the Lord's mercy. This is the point. He wants to tell Indra that, look, you're in that position. Is your life any easier? Why are you fighting me? Doesn't look like you're happy. He's chiding Indra. I don't know what Indra must be feeling. We'll see. We'll see what Indra feels about this. But he's getting good instruction from Vritrasura. And Vritrasura, for his own part, because he's a pure devotee, he doesn't care. If I kill you, then that is a glorious death. All my karma will be absolved, and I will go back to Godhead. And if you kill me, then that is also good, because my karma is absolved and I go back to Godhead. Either way, this is a pure devotee's peace. He has no anxiety over his future. He doesn't have, what is it called here? Manasa santapa, mental anxieties, adhi or udvega, because he knows what is his future. Very nicely, this is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami shokaleo shanto. Krishna bhakta nishkama ataibo shanto. That means that in this material world, everybody chases after mukti and bhukti and siddhis, but actually the devotee, because he's only interested in Krishna's desire, fulfilling Krishna's desire, which is impossible to frustrate. Therefore, he's always peaceful. And he always gets what he wants, because he wants what Krishna wants. Okay, I've said as much as we have time for. I unfortunately have another question in another class to give in South India, so I don't think that we really have time for questions, I'm sorry to say. I'm actually a couple of minutes late for my next class because we started late with this one. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Your host?
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much for giving the class. Madhubad Prabhu.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mukunda Prabhu.
Sorry to speak quickly and then leave, but that's just the nature of the scheduling of today. Next time we can take questions, perhaps.
Schedule another class, hopefully maybe next week or following.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much, all of you Vaishnavas, for listening carefully. I hope I've said something worthwhile for all of you, and please accept my humble obeisances and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpatarubhishya kripasindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Jai Radha.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare
Haribo.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Bol.
Dandavat
Prabhu.
Dandavat.
Giraj Govardhan ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
What a lecture.
Thank you very much. Okay. Few brief announcements. We are almost in the last weekend of this wonderful month of Purushottam Mass, Sadik Mass. And we are having Kirtan in the evening, where we can gather following social distancing, wearing mask and using sanitizers at the temple. And Kirtan from yesterday, there was a Kirtan, and today also from 6 to 7 or 6 to 8. Starting with Gaurarti, and then it will go into the Purushottam Kirtan, which we are doing every day, with the recitation of Jagannatha-stakam and Chaurastakam. And in these last few days, we are also offering lamps, so you can avail those opportunity. Also, Govindas is on. So many special items, so you can look into it and get it for you and your family. Tuesday is Ekadasi, minimally fasting from grains and beans and increasing our Krishna consciousness. The Ekadasi Kirtan, along with the Purushottam Mass Kirtan, will happen in the evening from 7 to 9 on Tuesday, Ekadasi day. Breaking fast time on Wednesday is, let's see, 7:09 a.m. to 10:52 a.m. And October 16th is the last day of Purushottam Mass. So again, we will gather in the evening. In fact, Kirtan is there every evening. Kirtan is there every evening, but especially days where we are now, these 4 days we are having Saturday, Sunday, Ekadasi day, and the last day, more extended Kirtan. So you're all invited. And then October 31st is the start of the holy month, Kartik, the month. So a lot of spiritual opportunity to increase our Krishna consciousness. Every day in the morning and evening, there is Bhagavatam class and Bhagavad Gita class. So also take that wonderful opportunity to, instead of being connected in the Pavarga category, as what Mukunda Dutta Prabhu was mentioning, perform devotional service to transcend that Pavarga to Apavarga. Right? Instead of just doing Parishram, do Parishram from Krishna if we have to do. Right? And perform seva, perform devotional service. That's our humble request. Okay, any other questions from the community, about the community?
Prabhuji, I had a quick question. Which verse was this from the 5th canto?
It was from the 6th canto, 6:114 or something.
No, it is 6:11:22. 6:11:22.
6:11:22. Thank you,
6:11:22.
Prabhuji. Hari Bol.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Anything else? Okay. On that note, we'll see you in the evening. Vancha kalpatarubhasya.
वैष्णवेभ्यो वैष्णववृंद की जय। कथरा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्ण। थैंक यू। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna.
राधे राधे।